ado, we'll go ahead and start with our seminar, and I'll get that back up on the screen. And again, I apologize that we don't have the best sound today. All right. We thought it would be a good idea for us to have a seminar today about identity theft, especially when we're going through a situation like COVID-19. There are a couple of things we're going to cover about what's going on due to the fact that we're in this pandemic, but the other things are just common things that you should think about when you're thinking about the materials that you have in your personal identity. So I thought I'd start out with a little joke here. Last week someone stole my identity. Today they came back begging for me to take it back. And my second joke is, just because you're the victim of identity theft doesn't mean you can claim the other identity as a dependent. All right. If you don't walk away from anything with this seminar, I think these top 3 things that I'm going to cover, there's 11 different points, and you can review those on your own, but there's 3 things that are very important when it comes to identity theft. We need to create strong passwords. When people have a password and they use it for, let's say you're going to use it for your banking, you're going to use it for your Yahoo account, you're going to use it for your Google account, you're going to use it for your LES bill. If you use the same password across all of those, it's going to be much easier when someone has a chance to steal that. And having a password that might be, maybe it's really fun that it's your dog's name, you know, it's Rufus1, and you use that all the way across the board, it's going to be a lot easier for someone to get a hold of that if there's a breach. So please think about using a strong password. Some of the things that I mean when I say a strong password would be have a capital letter in there, have a lowercase letter in there, have a number in there, and have some special character like an exclamation point within your password. Those are things that will make it more difficult for someone to get a hold of it and use it across all things. And the other thing is updating your password. And I know that's really hard. It's so hard to remember all the passwords that we have these days. But if you could think about updating those maybe every 6 months to 12 months and changing those out, it's better chance that you're not going to have a problem down the road. It's really hard to identify that you've had someone find out your password until they've gotten further into your information. So keep that in mind when you're working on things. And then the other thing that is important for you to do is to safeguard that social security number. When it comes to identity theft, social security number is really the main thing that will get someone in to have access to your identity. So don't carry your social security card around in your wallet. Don't have that social security number written on the back of a piece of paper and stuck in your wallet. Don't have it laying around the house. It's such an important number, and it gives people access to a lot of things that you might not be comfortable with. So I just ask for you to think of those 3 things first and foremost as we walk through this seminar. Now, the difference between identity theft and fraud. So fraud would be an example of you get a phone call from the credit union to tell you that there seems to be a suspicious, charge on your account for your credit card. And you say, oh yeah, I have not been in Indiana, I'm in Nebraska, that is not my charge. And then we can go ahead and block that card, and it is the responsibility of the issuer from Visa and MasterCard to go ahead and take care of fraud for you. So if you see anything on your credit card that is not yours, you just need to report that to us, and we will help you through that, and you will receive your money back. That is the guarantee of you using your Visa card with us. And that happens with... You can't hear us at all.
You're echoing so bad that, like, it's hard to understand.
Should I try to go back to
this? Could you have 2...
Not everybody's muted.
Open 2 profiles? If you could mute, like it's muted. So if this one is muted,
Yeah. I'm afraid
afraid
that
that
it's
if I could. Try that.
Okay. Am I still echoing?
No,
Is that better?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, guys. My biggest fear today was technology, and here we are. All right. So fraud versus identity theft. So we covered fraud. Fraud would be the example of something happening to a credit card, and any financial institution should be able to help you out with that. Fraud might be also falling for something that you shouldn't have and gotten yourself into a little bind. And we're going to go through some scenarios of that later. But identity theft has to do with somebody actually taking over your identity and applying for credit in your name. So they have gotten enough information that they can go out and apply for a credit card and get a credit card in your name because they have claimed to be you. It could be taking over your taxes. It could be taking over your medical insurance. Those are examples of identity theft. So the important reason that I want to give that distinction is that if you're having issues with fraud, we can help you, or other financial institutions you might have something with can help you. And if there's a breach at a Target or something like that, we can help you through that. But on ID theft, that becomes a little bit more difficult for us. We can only help you with the piece that has to do with us in this financial institution. But identity theft is something that becomes a lot more expensive and a lot harder for everyone to do. So that's why it's so important to try to avoid. And thank you very much for our staff for coming in and helping me out here on our volume. Sorry about that. Types of identity theft. I briefly said something about taxes. That is something that has become more prevalent today than it was before. People taking over and assuming you and filing your taxes. Now, it would seem to me that the IRS should be able to understand that I haven't received a tax return for quite some time. I've had to pay in for 10 years. And all of a sudden, I'm getting this great big tax return. You think that the IRS would say, hey, wait a second, that's a red flag. This is probably somebody filing a tax that shouldn't. But that's not how it's working. They do get that, people do get that money. You don't find out later until you file your taxes that there's a problem. So be very careful. Again, Social Security numbers is important, and not to give out your information. We are going to go through some fishing and some dumpster diving when Officer Darren Little gets on and gives us some information on that. So some statistics of ID theft and why it's important that we have a seminar on that. 1 in 15 people have become victims of ID theft. And one of the newest ones I had was 64% of Americans have had their data compromised from a data breach. And over 31% of those breach victims experienced an ID theft. So it's really important, again, just to watch your information and be careful about what you're doing, because it is out there and it's not just prevalent in other parts of the country. We do have it here in Nebraska. All right, I'm going to have more information from my side here in a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and unmute Darren so that he can go ahead and, oh, he did it himself. And I'm going to go see if I can't spotlight him so we can have him introduce himself for a second. So just a second. All right.
Okay.
Hello, Darren. Go
Hi.
ahead and introduce you. Can everyone hear Darren? Just give us a high five or a thumbs up if you can.
Yep. Everyone can hear me. Thumbs up.
Yep.
All right. Perfect. Well, thanks again for having me. My name's Darren Little. I've been with the University Police now for 14 years. I'm the security operations supervisor there. So with that being said, we'll just start out by talking about what identity theft is. If you want to go to the slide, Dina.
You betcha.
So this is the Nebraska state statute, what it says, the legal jargon of what identity theft is. It can get kind of confusing. So an easy way to sum that up is it's pretty much the fraudulent acquisition and use of a person's private identifying information. So it's people are usually doing that to um, gain something financially. So, for example, as Dina mentioned before, to get a credit card and, just go on a shopping rampage. So that's the Nebraska state statute definition of identity theft. Okay, next we'll talk about the personal identifying information. If you can go to the next screen. There's several different ways that you can be identified, when you're not even thinking about it. Just your name in general. These criminals out there are getting pretty savvy of finding your information out, through employment, your bank accounts, your signatures. They're even going as far as, they can take a picture of you, similar to your phones. They're doing that digital facial recognition. These criminals are coming up with devices that they can almost take a picture of you and use your face to get into your apps. If you have an app and it's based on facial recognition, your driver's license has so much information on it that people can go multiple avenues with that driver's license. So I'll talk about when say you're flying or something, they ask for an ID. We'll go over just some scenarios on the best avenue to go over. So that's just some identifying ways that your information is out there. These are the top identity thefts in Nebraska. Obviously, credit card fraud is the highest. I haven't looked at this recently because this is the 2017 data, but on campus, we often see the credit card fraud as being the highest, and we don't see much utility fraud. Often, though, we do see the threats by intimidation on the phones. Recently, we've been having like the Nigerian scams, or those are also called like the scholarship type of stuff, where they'll call and say they need money, like your grandchild or your son or daughter needs money, and you need to send money to them for school or something like that. That's becoming a popular type of scam that's going on. But Dina would probably know more about these bank fraud and whatnot. But on campus, we primarily see a lot of credit card fraud, or their bank account has been compromised. As I touched on earlier, these are some of the old school methods of how people get your information. Believe it or not, just your change of address. When you move from one place to the other, you're still possibly getting mail at your old place of residence. And, it's curiosity kills. Those people that have moved into your home, they could just get curious and start looking up who you are, and it can go just down a rabbit hole of, wow, I wonder what they did, and it's just a multitude of things. So when you change your address, and you don't really have any control over the change of address, your mail, obviously, but it's a federal offense, if you're going into someone else's mailbox and getting their mail. Fraud, the color of authority. So that means, say, like a landlord is using their power to get information from you that doesn't necessarily need to be known. Or another authoritative figure is asking you for information that isn't really necessary. We often see dumpster diving is a popular item where individuals are just diving through the dumpster looking for information. So I know at the credit union, they offer that shred day. You know, take full advantage of that because, you know, there's a lot of information on your documents. And if you're still getting your paper bank statements or any type of information, letters that have that type of information on them, you know, they can identify you. So shoulder surfing, that could be a hot topic that's up and coming since we're all technology driven anymore. And so that's like me looking over your shoulder, trying to figure out, hey, what are they looking up? Can I see their bank account over their shoulder when they're not looking? They're looking at their screen, but I'm behind them gathering information. And then one of the last ones is theft or burglary from your car or your home. You know, just don't leave any valuables in your car in the event that it would get broken into. Right there is an easy way for them to get any information. Those are just some of the old school ways that your identity can be taken. Some of the new ways are skimming. That seemed to be a really hot thing in Lincoln just a couple years ago, where at the gas stations, you know, they would put those skimming devices at the fuel pumps, and you would stick your credit card in there to pay for fuel, and these skimmers would get your credit card ID, and then your ID or credit card would be compromised. So a good practice is when you go to the fuel pumps, often, you know, touch that device where you're putting your credit card in and just see if it shakes. And usually at the gas stations, they do have that seal on there to show when they looked at the device. So with the COVID-19 though, you know, we aren't wanting to touch a lot of things, but it's always good just to make sure that that isn't loose. If it is loose, you know, go inside and tell the employee. Corrupt employees, you know, that could be anywhere from the front office associate. You're telling them information, filling out paperwork, and they're making copies for their own personal use to take advantage of you when they're going home. You know, it's sad to say, but it does happen. Social engineering, that's very popular. You know, just yesterday I was seeing this hot thing where Southwest Airlines, since all the airlines are suffering right now, the Southwest Airlines offering free flights or something if you share their logo on Facebook or something. You know, that's social engineering. Those are hacks, not necessarily that you're going to get a free flight if you share that. That's how these scammers are getting your personal information. They say, hey, you actually want a free flight. Well, you know what? They made that up. The best thing to do is actually go to Southwest Airlines and see if they are actually running that promotion rather than Facebook, because we all know that Facebook, you can create your own fake account and start things like that. And key logging, I don't know if that is especially popular, but that is There's devices on your keyboard. They can just see what keystrokes you are doing. I haven't had any experience with key logging, but I know it is out there. These are just the types of ways that people can get your identity. The phishing, that's a common one, as most of us have email. So phishing. I just came across this one the other day at the university, believe it or not, is through the email. They would send out an email saying, hey, you have a voicemail on this email account. And usually if it is in a voicemail over an email account, it comes through a WAV file. But this was just an email wanting you to log into an account to check your voicemail, which that usually doesn't occur. The SMS ishing, that's via text, so you get a text and it says, text 944 to this to win $50. Usually it's too good to be true, so don't fall for that. The vishing is voice, so you're getting these phone calls, and it sounds like your son or daughter, and they can often get these apps where it almost sounds just like another person. It's unbelievable. So that's how they do the vishing. And spoofing is more or less different phone numbers. So you'll get a phone number where you may think it's your doctor's office, but it is actually a different person, a criminal from a different country, and they're asking for your personal information. And that seems to be a common trend now too, with all the technology and the apps out there. You can do several different things. So if it sounds too good to be true, it's always not true most of the time. So it's just be very cautious and take the extra step to just double check. I'm going to talk about the 3 Ds. These are steps to prevent your identity, deter. So treat sensitive personal information with care. Your social security number. I learned this, that when you go to the doctor's office or, at any college, you don't necessarily have to provide them with your real social security number, because how do they know your social security number is linked to you? So you can provide a social security number of there's like 999, the first 3 digits. I have some information that I can email you on how to make up a fake social security number to help you out, so your real social security number isn't out. So the first 3 digits, it's called I believe, area. So you can make a 999 for the first 3, or the last 4, you can change that up. And they use that, they say, for collection, but how do they know that's actually you? And review your financial statements. A lot of us are going digitally, and when we get that email, we don't often review those statements. We just kind of either delete them or file them away in our email. Look over them and see if there's any fraudulent charges or anything like that. And monitor your credit. Dina can probably go over this a little bit with freezing or anything like that, but just monitor your credit, do your annual credit reports. This is more or less just to deter your identity being taken. To defend yourself, place a fraud alert on your credit report if you think your identity has been compromised. You can close accounts and request new accounts if you think you have been a victim of this. Contact the police. If you think your identity has been compromised, you should file a report with the police and the Federal Trade Commission. They will help you to get everything resolved. Change your passwords, as Dina mentioned. You know, make them difficult. Don't use, you know, your first and last name, and incorporate Roman numerals or numbers and characters and whatnot. One thing I always do to defend against this, you know, when you often get a phone call, and I don't know if many people do this, you get an unknown number. If you do answer, they will say, "Hello, is this so-and-so?" And this is similar to the spoofing. I don't ever say yes, because people will often be recording you, and when they have that voice and you say yes, that could be opening a can of worms to several other things. So when someone calls you and says, "Is this Mike?" you can say, "This is Mike." I don't like to say yes, or you can just say speaking. You know, when you give them that yes or anything like that, that opens a can of worms for them to record you, and they can play that down the road to say they're opening a line of credit. That's exactly what your voice would sound like. And then the last one is detect. Once again, that's just reviewing. Oh, well, yep. Well, detecting is, you know, reviewing your accounts. Did you open another line of credit? Is that charge on your credit card what you paid for, or just any inaccurate information on your credit report? So that's when you go into the credit union to do your annual credit check. Is it accurate? Any mail that you shouldn't get. Oftentimes, if you get something in the mail, you can put it back in the mail and just make a note, does not live here, and they'll take it back. Receiving any credit cards you didn't apply for, you know, that often is a sign that, hey, who may be using my information to apply for this, and is this going to affect my credit down the road or anything like that? Receiving calls or letters from the debt collectors again. Like I said, that could be from the dumpster diving or anything like that, where they've actually gathered your numbers or any information about you. So just being able to decipher on, hey, maybe my identity theft has been compromised, that I need to take further action. The next one is just how to, I guess the additional resources is you can go to protectthegoodlife.nebraska.gov. That will give you some more information on the identity theft. And I often refer people to the Federal Trade Commission. They often have good information, and that's what, if your identity is taken, that's where you would file a report along with your local police department as well. Like I said before, take your time when you're going through this. Don't initially have that knee-jerk reaction. You know, take your time, think through this, because yes, it is a very scary situation, but get all your ducks in a row and then go proceed through through this, but obviously, yeah, you don't want your identity out there. So by that, I mean, go, I guess, go quickly and get all your ducks in a row, but don't just immediately make a report. And also confer with family. You know, yes, it is scary, but talk to, you know, with a son or daughter or your spouse and say, you know what, I think my identity has been stolen. Do you have any fraudulent charges or any concerns on your behalf or anything? You know, just talk with others. That will also help, you know, stop the threat. Like I've said, reporting the identity theft. We talked about the Federal Trade Commission, the Attorney General's office, and your local police department as well.
All right, Darren, I think that's all your slides, is that right?
Yes, that's what, yep. I did mention about the driver's license. You know, say you're at the airport and they ask you, do you have a form of ID? You know, oftentimes I like to just give like a picture ID instead of a driver's license, you know, just because there's all that information on a driver's license in the event that, hey, that information would get out. But you know, you can always be overly cautious, but I just like to, you know, like my in card or a work ID, I always like to give that rather than my driver's license. So I'll kick it back to you, Dina.
All right. Thank you very much, Darren, for that advice. I'm going to go on to does anybody have anything they want to send through on chat? We had obviously a little communication with our sound and our echoing, so I appreciate everybody helping me through that. But please feel free to go ahead and chat if you have specific questions on what Darren was able to cover. We'll go back into the slides here. I wanted to talk about a couple of things that are happening here in Lincoln. We did have this happen very close to the credit union. We had what they call a pigeon drop. And in this case, someone claims to have found a bag of money, and they walk up to someone they think that they can, you know, talk into, or they think they're vulnerable. And they say, hey, I found this money, and they show them the bag and let them know that hey, you know, it doesn't look like it's anybody's money. Maybe we should just go ahead and share it. And as the scenario goes on, this criminal talks the person into thinking that they're going to get part of this money, but yet they're going to need to put up some money in front of that because the criminal has consulted an attorney. In order to get that money out of that bag, they're going to need to put some money in as a guarantee. Makes no sense to me, but it does happen. So I wanted people to be aware that when a criminal comes up and talks to you about something, maybe about finding a bag of money, it's too good to be true, and they're really good at it. We understand why people fall for these things because the criminal has practiced. They know what to say. They know how to get people to believe them. So don't feel embarrassed. If something like this happens to you, please just report it or tell someone that it's going on. Same thing with a romance scammer. I think that Officer Darren Little had talked about that being something that's going on at the university, where people pose as someone else and then they start asking for dollars. As I put there, about $201 million was lost just last year in romance scams. You're out there, you're trying to meet new people, you're online, but if somebody's asking you for cash, maybe they're asking you for an airline ticket, or they're saying they have a gambling debt, or they need money to buy a new outfit so they can get a job. All of those things, please, if you don't know the person, you've never met them, you've never seen them in person, no matter how much you think you can trust them, this is not good. This is not true. Just like Darren tried to talk about Facebook. I don't know how many of the other ones, maybe you guys can give me a thumbs up, but I've seen so much with the airlines, like Darren mentioned. I've also seen that you would win a camper. I've seen, there was a third one that they were going around, I think it was a car. You could win a new car. They're everywhere on Facebook, and they're not true. So please do not answer those. Security scams, Social Security scams are going on. And then Publishers Clearinghouse. We've actually had a few members that have had this situation. We've all heard about Publishers Clearinghouse. For instance, you might have even been hearing the commercials on the radio right now. I just heard one the other day when I was driving. It said, our prize patrol is going to be out and we're going to be awarding our Publishers Clearinghouse soon. So watch your mail and sign up today. Publishers Clearinghouse is a legitimate place, but unfortunately some people have decided to use that as a scam as well. Number one, Publishers Clearinghouse is not going to call you. If you are a winner, they're going to arrive at your home. And you've seen that on TV, where they have the ad and they're all there with the balloons and they tell you that you're a winner. That's what's going to happen with Publishers Clearinghouse. If you win one of their smaller prizes, you're going to get a certified mail that tells you that you're a winner. It's not going to be a phone call. So please, if you get a phone call and you think it's Publishers Clearinghouse, it is not them. They in no way would ever ask you to pay taxes and fees up front in order to get your winnings. And that's really where the scam comes in. Someone will call you, they'll tell you that in order for you to win your Publishers Clearinghouse, you need to pay taxes and fees. And they usually ask you to wire it to them or to get a gift card or a reloadable card. And then that's how they walk away with the money. So again, too good to be true.
Dina, can I just add one thing really quick?
You bet.
It seems that, yeah, the gift card scams are becoming really popular with, say, I write you a check and then I want you to cash the check and go to Walgreens and buy gift cards for me and scratch the PIN number off and give me the PIN numbers, and then you're out a bunch of money because I had you cash a fraudulent check. And so that seems to be the very common scam that's going around, and it's so easy to fall for it because people will want you to cash that check, and it happens all the time to these people, and it's very lucrative with the gift cards. And I just can't stress how careful to be when you're giving other people the PIN numbers, and if it just doesn't seem right, don't do it.
Yeah, we definitely as a financial institution have seen that come through. I know on campus, I'm part of a financial group, a committee, and one of the things is that students were having this problem, and Union Bank was also very aware of it, and they go in, they ask you to cash that check, and you come out with no money. And I understand, especially as college students or anyone that's really needing some money, it's very hard to say no to something that looks like it's free. But like I have on the screen here, it's too good to be true, and unfortunately, that's usually what we see. Some COVID things. The FTC is reporting 1,857 fraud cases reported connected to COVID. I wanted to give just a little bit of information on what's going on. There's 96 cases here in Nebraska, which 96 cases per 100,000 in population here in Nebraska. And that's come to approximately $1.1 million in total losses. So believe it or not, we have people out there that are taking advantage of the pandemic, and there's already been that many cases reported. The highest incidents of fraud have been in Nevada and in Florida so far. And some of the things that have been happening is it's really confusing. I think all of us, even here at the credit union, very confused about what the government's doing with the stimulus checks and how we verify whether those really have gone to the right place. So there are people who are trying to take advantage of that. One of the things they're doing is calling people and saying, hey, we're the IRS, we've given you too much money, you need to pay us back. That's not going to happen. Also, I think it was kind of a surprise to people, and we've been dealing with that on our end, that they got a debit card for their stimulus check. It is a true debit card. It is your dollars, but unfortunately, we've been all taught that that's not how things are going to work, and people have cut that up. We do have that information on our website, so if you were one of those individuals that got a debit card and for your stimulus, but you're like, that's not true, there's no way. We do have the information on our website and that you can call and get another debit card, but it was unfortunate that that information wasn't put out a little bit clearer. And from our side, it was also a little scary because that's where fraud happens a lot, is when people want to come in and get a cash advance on a credit card. So we're a little bit more cautious on our side, as well, as that was not communicated well from the government. Something that I already went through that call on that. A money mule, again, kind of like Darren and I have already talked about. It's when someone asks you to go get them money in order for you to make more money. That's just a scam that continues to go on, and it is during COVID-19. The other thing I wanted to cover is Google Pay and Apple Pay. I don't know if people want to give their thumbs up of anyone who uses that product, yes or no. With what's going on with COVID-19, this is the amount of people using what they can consider contactless or Google Pay, Apple Pay to pay for their charges. I had one statistic that said that just with Square, it used to be about 8% of the people were using that kind of product. And in 1 month, because of COVID-19, it jumped to 31%. So this is going to be something that's going to be used more and more as we go into the future, and it is secure. I just want that to get out there, to not be afraid to use Google Pay and Apple Pay. When you put that on your phone, there is a specific token that is assigned to you. And at this point, because of the algorithms on that and how often the number is changed, at this point, it's a very safe product, and the criminals haven't broken that tokenization and been able to infiltrate that and get into that and steal your information. So the other thing people are scared of, they're like, well, that's my phone, and then I'll have my financial information in my phone. What if I lose my phone? It's absolutely possible for you to lose your phone, but it's also possible to use your wallet or your purse. And in fact, I think probably more of us have experienced misplacing those two items than we have our phone, because our phone is just always with us. So when you download that token and you use Google Pay or Apple Pay, you are forced to put a password on your phone or use the face recognition on your phone before it'll let you in. It's okay to use if it's something you want to try out. I'm all for it, and it's a good idea. It's not something to shy away from. It's something that's going to be more prevalent as we continue to the future. The weakest link, and I just put this up, you can read that on your own, but this is another thing to think about. It always seems to be us that we're the weakest link. We're the ones who fall for the items that criminals are out there trying to get. And so we need to be the ones who are on top of that with our passwords and keeping track of things. As Darren had said that I would allude to when it comes to some ID theft tips, freezing your credit bureau. I don't know if anyone wants to give a high five or a thumbs up on that if they've frozen their credit. Anyone out there in our seminar? This is definitely something that is good to do depending a little bit on your age and what you see as your future when it comes for your need of credit. I like to say if you're going to freeze your credit, you just have to be prepared for it to be a little clunky. It's not straightforward, and it is a bit of a hassle. If that's something you like to steer away from, don't freeze your credit, because it'll be a little difficult. But if you're willing to put in the time and you would sleep better at night knowing that your credit is safe, then freezing your credit is a good idea. And ever since there was a breach with one of the credit bureaus, it is free for you to freeze it and unfreeze it. I have that information on the screen, and I will send out our slideshow after we are done so that you would have that available to you. Each of the different credit bureaus have a different way of freezing it. That's where the clunkiness comes in. Some will have a PIN where they assign it. Some will ask you to assign your own PIN. Very important that you don't lose the PIN, because then you can't unfreeze the credit. So the question is, why would you want to unfreeze it? Well, an example I have is that here working at the credit union, I used to have my phone through Husker Tech. And then, quite truthfully, it was a good idea. The university said, hey, you know, we can't keep track of what's going on at the credit union. You're not in our own employment portal, so we're going to go ahead and ask you to be removed from our phone service, which was fine. So I went over to get my regular phone at Verizon, and Verizon said, oh, you're not really a customer of ours. I had Verizon before I went to Husker Tech, and I was going to go back to Verizon, but they said, you are not a customer. So in that case, I needed them to, they wanted to pull credit on me. Well, I had my credit was all frozen. So they didn't know which bureau they were using, so we had to go in, unfreeze all of them. And in some cases, you can set how long it'll be unfrozen. Some you have to remember to go back and freeze. Like I said, a little clunky, but you can do that. They pulled the credit, got my phone, we refroze the credit. I can tell you from experience the things that I don't have because I have my credit frozen. One, I don't have to worry about a breach. I've had to have my credit card replaced a couple of times because there was fraud on it. Like my example that someone says, I'm not in Indiana, so that charge is not mine. That's happened one night when I was at home. We have a product here at the credit union called My Card Rules. And in that case, you can turn your credit card on and off, and you can also put alerts. So I was sitting watching TV, and I got an alert that said, your card's being used in Indiana. But I didn't get too nervous about it. One, it's fraud, and I knew the credit union would help me out with that. But also my credit was frozen, so I knew it wasn't somebody getting into that. So it just depends on your comfort level and what you want to do with that. I also don't get solicitations at home. I don't get a lot of direct mail. I don't get phone calls. I don't get a lot of things because they're not pulling credit on me, so they're not going to offer me credit. Having your credit frozen does not affect your credit score. It also does not affect what your credit score might be used with for institutions you have a partnership with. If, for instance, your insurance, which is also based on your credit score, needs to know and get an update, they can do that because they've already established a partnership with you. So even if you've frozen your credit, it's okay. And then we talked about checking your credit. So everyone should check their credit, and you can go to annualcreditreport.com. Those are 3 credit bureaus we had on the past screen. And you can get a free credit report every 6 months, every year from each one of those. So my suggestion is that you do that every 6 months. You go ahead and you check your credit through that annual credit report. You just pull each bureau as it comes up for 6 months. And that way you get a better idea more quickly if you have a problem. Very much when you leave this meeting, if you don't do anything else, please go out to annualcreditreport.com and get your credit report and make sure things are A-OK. Annualcreditreport.com is ran by the United States government. You're not going to get solicitations later. Like if you go and pull it somewhere else, then all you end up getting is a bunch of emails from them asking you to buy other products. You're not going to get that from this one. So it's a good idea to use that. All right. That is all we have for our presentation today. I wanted to leave you with the things that I hope that you can get from here. That is to make sure you have a difficult password, make sure that you update your passwords. If it seems too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And finally, please check your credit report and watch your banking statements. Anyone have any questions, you can go ahead and send that through chat, and Darren and I will stay on here a little bit and answer those for you. I've also unmuted people if you do want to go ahead and just put out a question for us.
I had one other thing too. I forgot to say is when, say you're writing a check or just dating anything, to always write 2020 and not just write, say like today's date, 6/19/20, because people are able to change the year, you know, so always write out 2020 when you're writing the date out, because people are able to manipulate the years, so they can either write 2019 or 2021, and that's becoming a common thing too. So always write out 6/19/2020.
Thank you. That's very good information, Darren. I do have a question in chat. They want to know what would be the bad points of having your credit frozen, and pretty much that's what I had a chance to cover, is that it's just a hassle. So if you are out there needing credit, so again, it's not exactly an age thing, but let's say that you're 23, you just graduated from college, you know that you need to get a new car, you need to set up a phone, you need to set up a household, you need to get your electricity, you move, you need all these things. It's going to be a big hassle for you to unfreeze your credit to do all of that. But if you think, gosh, I'm not going to be needing credit really quickly, I'm going to have time to plan for it, I can talk to whomever I'm getting credit from, I can find out which credit bureaus they're looking at, then you can unfreeze the credit, get what you need, and freeze it again. So again, it really is up to you. If it would help you sleep at night, I would suggest you go ahead and freeze your credit. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Brad. Said we did a good job, Darren. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and please watch our website and our social media about opening our doors. We are here to help you. We have a full staff. Our drive-throughs are open. We're open Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30, so please visit us through the drive-through. And we also have our phone number is live and well, and you can talk to somebody when you give us a phone call, and we're at 402-472-2087. Have a great day, and thank you for your membership.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.